The subtitles are on? Okay. Everything is on. Hare Krishna. Welcome to our Sunday Krishna book reading to Srila Prabhupada. Every Sunday, Srila Prabhupada allows us to come here and read to him from his most wonderful Krishna book. And today, we're on chapter 56, the story of the Shamantaka jewel. So this will be very exciting. So as we always do, let us offer our respectful obeisances to Srila Prabhupada and to each other. Namo Vishnuvadaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharane Nirvasesha Sunyavadi Paskacha Deshatarane. To each other, Vansha Kalpa Durubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhyevacha Patitanam Pavane Bhyo Vaishnave Bhyo Namo Namaha. Chapter 56, the story of the Shamantaka jewel.
There was a king of the name Satrajit within the jurisdiction of Dwarakadam. He was a great devotee of the sun god, who awarded him the benediction of a jewel known as Shamantaka. Because of this Shamantaka jewel, there was a misunderstanding between King Satrajit and the Yadu dynasty. Later, the matter was settled when Satrajit voluntarily offered Krishna his daughter Satyabhama along with the Shamantaka jewel. Not only Satyabhama, but also Jambavati, the daughter of Jambavan, was married to Krishna on account of the Shamantaka jewel. These two marriages took place before the appearance of Pradyumna, which was described in the last chapter. How King Satyajit offended the Yadu dynasty and how he later came to his senses and offered his daughter and the Shamantaka jewel to Krishna are described as follows.
Since he was a great devotee of the sun god, King Satyajit gradually entered into a very friendly relationship with him. The sun god was pleased with him and delivered to him an exceptional jewel known as Shamantaka. When Satyajit wore this jewel in a locket around his neck, he appeared exactly like an imitation sun god. Putting on this jewel, he entered the city of Dwarka, and people thought that the sun god had come into the city to see Krishna. They knew that Krishna, being the Supreme Personality of Godhead, was sometimes visited by the demigods. So while Satyajit was visiting the city of Dwarka, all the inhabitants except Krishna took him to be the sun god himself. Although King Satyajit was known to everyone, he could not be recognized because of the dazzling effulgence of the Shamantaka jewel.
Mistaking Satyajit to be the sun god, some of the important citizens of Dwaraka immediately went to Krishna to inform him that the sun god had arrived to see him. At that time, Krishna was playing chess. One of the important residents of Dwaraka spoke thus, "My dear Lord Narayana, you are the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In your plenary portion as Narayana or Vishnu, you have 4 hands with different symbols, the conch shell, disc, club and lotus flower. You are actually the owner of everything. But in spite of your being the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Narayana, you descended in Vrindavana to act as the chief of Yasoda Mother, who sometimes used to tie you up with her robes, and you are celebrated. Therefore, by the name Damodara.
That Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Narayan, as accepted by the citizens of Dwaraka, was later confirmed by the great Mayavadi philosophical leader Sankaracharya. By accepting the Lord as impersonal, he did not reject the Lord's personal form. Everything which has form in this material world is subject to creation, maintenance, and annihilation. But because the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Narayan, does not have a material form subject to these limitations, Sankaracharya, to convince the less intelligent men who take Krishna to be an ordinary human being, said that God is impersonal. This impersonality means that he is not a person of this material condition. He is a transcendent personality without a material body.
The citizens of Dwaraka addressed Lord Krishna not only as Damodar but also as Govinda, which indicates that Krishna is very affectionate to the cows and calves. And just to refer to their intimate connection with Krishna, they addressed him as Yadunandana, because he was born the son of Vasudev in the Yadu dynasty. The citizens of Dwaraka concluded by addressing Krishna as the supreme master of the whole universe. They addressed Krishna in many different ways, proud of being citizens of Dwaraka who could see Krishna daily.
When Satyajit was visiting the city of Dwarka, the citizens felt great pride to think that although Krishna was living in Dwarka like an ordinary human being, the demigods were coming to see him. Thus, they informed Lord Krishna that the sun god, with his glaring bodily effulgence, was coming to see him. The citizens of Dwarka confirmed that the sun god's coming into Dwarka was not very wonderful, because people all over the universe who were searching after the Supreme Personality of Godhead knew that he had appeared in the Yadu dynasty and was living in Dwarka as one of the members of that family. Thus, the citizens expressed their joy on this occasion. On hearing the statements of his citizens, the all-pervasive personality of Godhead, Krishna, simply smiled. Being pleased with the citizens of Dwarka, Krishna informed them that the person they described as the sun god was actually King Satyajit, who had come to visit Dwarka city to show his opulence in the form of the valuable jewel obtained from the sun god.
Satyajit, however, did not come to see Krishna. He was instead overwhelmed by the Shamandaka jewel. He installed the jewel in a temple to be worshipped by Brahmanas he engaged for this purpose. This is an example of a less intelligent person worshipping a material thing. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is stated that less intelligent persons, in order to get immediate results from their fruitive activities, worship the demigods created within this universe. The word materialist means one concerned with gratification of the senses within this material world. Although Krishna later asked for this Shamandaka jewel, King Satyajit did not deliver it. On the contrary, he installed the jewel for his own purposes of worship. And who would not worship that jewel? The Shamandaka jewel was so powerful that daily it produced a large quantity of gold. A quantity of gold is counted by a measurement called a bara. According to Vedic formulas, 1 bara is equal to about 21 pounds and 1 mound equals about 82 pounds. The jewel was producing about 170 pounds of gold every day. Besides that, it is learned from Vedic literature that in whatever part of the world this well was worshipped, there was no possibility of famine, and wherever the jewel was present, there was no possibility of anything inauspicious such as pestilence.
Lord Krishna wanted to teach the world that the best of everything should be offered to the ruling chief of the country. King Ugrasena was the overlord of many dynasties and happened to be the grandfather of Krishna. So Krishna asked Satyajit to present the Shamataka jewel to King Ugrasena. Krishna pleaded that the best should be offered to the king, but Satyajit, being a worshipper of the demigods, had become too materialistic and, instead of accepting the request of Krishna, thought it wiser to worship the jewel to get the 170 pounds of gold every day. Materialistic persons who can achieve such huge quantities of gold are not interested in Krishna consciousness. Sometimes, therefore, to show special favor, Krishna takes away one's great accumulations of materialistic wealth and thus makes one a great devotee. But Satyajit refused to abide by the order of Krishna and did not deliver the jewel.
After this incident, Satyajit's younger brother, in order to display the opulence of the family, took the jewel, put it on his neck, and rode on horseback into the forest, making a show of his material opulence. While Satyajit's brother, who was known as Prasena, was moving here and there in the forest, a big lion attacked him, killed both him and the horse on which he was riding, and took away the jewel to his cave. News of this was received by the gorilla king, Jambavan, who then killed that lion in the cave and took away the jewel. Jambavan had been a great devotee of the Lord since the time of Lord Ramachandra. So he did not take the valuable jewel as something he very much needed. He gave it to his young son to play with as a toy.
In the city, when Satyajit's younger brother Prasena did not return from the forest with the jewel, Satyajit became very upset. He did not know that his brother had been killed by a lion and that the lion had been killed by Jambavan. He thought instead that because Krishna wanted the jewel, which had not been delivered to him, Krishna might have therefore taken the jewel from Prasena by force and killed him. This idea grew into a rumor, which Satyajit spread in every part of Dwarka. The false rumor that Krishna had killed Prasena and taken away the jewel spread everywhere like wildfire. Krishna did not like to be defamed in that way, and therefore he decided that he would go to the forest and find the Shamantaka jewel. Taking with him some of the important inhabitants of Dwarka, Krishna went to search out Prasena, the brother of Satyajit, and found him dead, killed by the lion. At the same time, Krishna also found the lion, killed by Jambavan, who is generally called Riksha. It was found that the lion had been killed by the hand of Riksha without the assistance of any weapon. Krishna and the citizens of Dwarka then found in the forest a great tunnel, said to be the path to Riksha's house. Krishna knew that the inhabitants of Dwarka would be afraid to enter the tunnel. Therefore, he asked them to remain outside, and he himself entered the dark tunnel alone to find Riksha or Jambavan. After entering the tunnel, Krishna saw that the valuable jewel known as Shamantaka had been given to the son of Riksha as a toy. To take the jewel from the child, Krishna approached and stood before him. When the nurse taking care of Riksha's child saw Krishna standing before her, she was afraid, thinking he might take away the valuable Shamantaka jewel, and she cried out loudly in fear.
Hearing the nurse's cries, Jambavan appeared on the scene in a very angry mood. Jambavan was actually a great devotee of Lord Krishna, but because he was angry, he could not recognize his master and thought him to be an ordinary man. This brings to mind the statement of the Bhagavad Gita in which the Lord advises Arjuna to get free from anger, greed and lust in order to rise to the spiritual platform. Lust, anger and greed run parallel in the heart and check one's progress on the spiritual path. Not recognizing his master, Jambavan challenged him to fight. There was then a great fight between Krishna and Jambavan, in which they fought like two opposing vultures. Whenever there is an eatable corpse, the vultures fight heartily over the prey. Krishna and Jambavan first of all fought with weapons, then with stones, then with big trees, then hand to hand, until at last they were hitting each other with their fists. Their blows like the striking of thunderbolts. Each expected victory over the other, but the fighting continued for 28 days, both in daytime and at night without stopping.
Although Jambavan was the strongest living entity of that time, practically all the joints of his bodily limbs became slackened and his strength was reduced practically to nil. For he was struck constantly by the fists of Sri Krishna, feeling very tired, with perspiration all over his body. Jambavan was astonished. Was this opponent who was fighting so hard with him? Jambavan was quite aware of his own superhuman bodily strength, but when he felt tired from being struck by Krishna, he could understand that Krishna was no one else but his worshipable Lord, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This incident has special significance for devotees. In the beginning, Jambavan could not understand Krishna because his vision was obscured by material attachment. He was attached to his boy and to the greatly valuable Shamantaka jewel, which he did not want to spare for Krishna. In fact, when Krishna came there, he was angry, thinking that Krishna had come to take away the jewel. This is the material position. Although one is very strong in body, that cannot help him understand Krishna.
In a sporting attitude, Krishna wanted to engage in a mock fight with his devotee. As we have experienced from the pages of Srimad Bhagavatam, the Supreme Personality of Godhead has all the propensities and instincts of a human being. Sometimes in a sportive spirit, he wishes to fight and make a show of bodily strength. and when he so desires, he selects one of his suitable devotees to give him that pleasure. Krishna desired this pleasure of mock fighting with Jambavan. Although Jambavan was a devotee by nature, he did not know that his opponent was Krishna while giving service to the Lord by his bodily strength. But as soon as Krishna was pleased by the fighting, Jambavan immediately understood that his opponent was none other than the Supreme Lord himself. The conclusion is that he could understand Krishna by his service, for Krishna is sometimes satisfied by fighting also.
Jambavan therefore said to the Lord, "My dear Lord, I can now understand who you are. You are the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Vishnu, the source of everyone's strength, wealth, reputation, beauty, wisdom, and renunciation." This statement of Jambavan's is confirmed by the Vedanta Sutra, wherein the Supreme Lord is declared to be the source of everything. Jambavan identified Lord Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Vishnu. "My dear Lord, you are the creator of the creators of the universal affairs." This statement is very instructive to the ordinary man, who is amazed by the activities of a person with an exceptional brain. The ordinary man is surprised to see the inventions of a great scientist. But the statement of Jambavan confirms that although a scientist may be a creator of many wonderful things, Krishna is the creator of the scientist. He is the creator of not only one scientist, but of millions and trillions all over the universe. Jambavan said further, "Not only are you the creator of the creators, but you are also the creator of the material elements which the so-called creators manipulate." Scientists utilize the physical elements or laws of material nature to do something wonderful, but actually such laws and elements are also the creation of Krishna. This is actual scientific understanding. Less intelligent men do not try to understand who created the brain of the scientist. They are satisfied simply to see the wonderful creation or invention of the scientist.
Jambavan continued, "My dear Lord, the time factor, which combines all the physical elements, is also your representative. You are the supreme time factor in which all creation takes place, is maintained and is finally annihilated. And beyond the physical elements and the time factor, the persons who manipulate the ingredients and advantages of creation are part and parcel of you. The living entity is not, therefore, an independent creator. By studying all factors in the right perspective, one can see that you are the supreme controller and Lord of everything. My dear Lord, I can therefore understand that you are the same Supreme Personality of Godhead, whom I worship as Lord Ramachandra. My Lord Ramachandra wanted to construct a bridge over the ocean, and I saw personally how the ocean became agitated simply by my Lord's glancing over it. And when the whole ocean became agitated, living entities like whales, alligators, and Timingala fish all became perturbed. The Timingala fish in the ocean can swallow big aquatics like whales in one gulp. In this way, the ocean was forced to give way and allow Ramachandra to cross to the island known as Lanka. This island is now said to be Ceylon. Lord Ramachandra Lord Ramachandra's construction of a bridge over the ocean from Cape Cameron to Ceylon is still well known to everyone. After the construction of the bridge, a fire was set all over the kingdom of Ravana. During the fighting with Ravana, every part of his limbs was slashed to pieces by your sharp arrows, and his heads fell to the face to the earth. Now I can understand that you are none other than my Lord Ramachandra. No one else has such immeasurable strength. No one else could defeat me in this way.
Lord Krishna was satisfied by the prayers and statements of Jambavan, and to mitigate Jambavan's pain, he began to lightly rub the lotus palm of his hand all over Jambavan's body. Thus Jambavan at once felt relieved from the fatigue of the great fight. Lord Krishna then addressed him as King Jambavan because he, and not the lion, was actually the king of the forest, having killed a lion with his bare hands, without a weapon. Krishna informed Jambavan that he had come to ask for the Shamatanka jewel because ever since it had been stolen, his name had been defamed by the less intelligent. Krishna plainly informed him that he had come there to ask for the jewel in order to be free from this defamation. Jambavan understood the whole situation, and to satisfy the Lord, he immediately delivered not only the Shamataka jewel, but also his daughter Jambavati, who was of marriageable age, and presented her to Lord Krishna.
The episode of Jambavati's marriage with Lord Krishna and the delivery of the jewel known as Shamantaka was finished within the mountain cave. Although the fighting between Krishna and Jambavan went on for 28 days, the inhabitants of Dwaraka waited outside the tunnel for 12 days, and after that, they decided that something undesirable must have happened. They could not understand for certain what had actually happened, and being very sorry and tired, they returned to the city of Dwaraka. All the members of the family, namely Krishna's mother Devaki, his father Vasudev, and his chief wife Rukmini, along with all other friends, relatives, and residents of the palace, were very sorry when the citizens returned home without Krishna. Because of their natural affection for Krishna, they began to call Satyajit ill names, for he was the cause of Krishna's disappearance. They went to worship the goddess Chandrabhaga, praying for the return of Krishna. The goddess was satisfied by the prayers of the citizens of Dwaraka, and she immediately offered them her benediction. Simultaneously, Krishna appeared on the scene, hooray, Haribo, accompanied by his new wife, Jambavati, and all the inhabitants of Dwaraka and relatives of Krishna became joyful. The inhabitants of Dwaraka were as joyful as someone receiving a dear relative back from the dead. They had concluded that Krishna had been put into great difficulties due to the fighting. Therefore, they had become almost hopeless of his return. But when they saw that Krishna had actually returned, not alone, but with a new wife, Jambavati, they immediately performed a ceremony of celebration.
King Ugrasena then called for a meeting of all important kings and chiefs. He also invited Satyajit, and before the whole assembly, Krishna explained the incident of the recovery of the jewel from Jambavan. Krishna wanted to return the valuable jewel to King Satyajit. Satyajit, however, was ashamed because he had unnecessarily defamed Krishna. He accepted the jewel in his hand, but he remained silent, bending his head downwards, and without saying anything in the assembly of the kings and chiefs, he returned home with the jewel. Then he thought about how he could clear himself of the abominable act he had performed by defaming Krishna. He was conscious that he had offended Krishna very grievously, and that he had to find a remedial measure so that Krishna would again be pleased with him.
King Satyajit was eager to get relief from the anxiety he had foolishly created due to being attracted by a material thing, specifically the Shamandaka jewel. Truly afflicted by the offense he had committed against Krishna, he sincerely wanted to rectify it from within. From within, Krishna gave him good intelligence, and Satyajit decided to hand over to Krishna both the jewel and his beautiful daughter Satyabhama. There was no alternative for mitigating the situation, and therefore he arranged the marriage ceremony of Krishna and his daughter. He gave in charity both the jewel and his daughter to Supreme Personality of Godhead. Satyabhama was so beautiful and qualified that Satyajit, in spite of being asked for her hand by many princes, was waiting to find a suitable son-in-law. By the grace of Krishna, he decided to hand his daughter over to him. Lord Krishna, being pleased with Satyajit, informed him that he did not have any need of the Shamandaka jewel. It is better to let it remain in the temple as you have kept it, he said, and every one of us will derive benefit from the jewel. Because of the jewel's presence in the city of Dwaraka, there will be no more famines or disturbances created by pestilence or excessive heat and cold. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the 56th chapter of Krishna, the story of the Shamandaka jewel.
Chapter 57. The killing of Satyajit and Shatabhanva. After Akrura visited Hastinapura and reported the condition of the Pandavas to Krishna, there were further developments. The Pandavas were transferred to a house which was made of rock and was later set ablaze, and everyone believed that the Pandavas, among with their mother Kunti, had been killed. This information was also sent to Lord Krishna and Balaram. After consulting together, they decided to go to Hastinapura to show sympathy to their relatives. Krishna and Balaram certainly knew that the Pandavas could not have been killed in the devastating fire, but in spite of this knowledge, they wanted to go to Hastinapura to take part in the bereavement. On arriving in Hastinapura, Krishna and Balaram first went to see Bhishmadev because he was the chief of the Kuru dynasty. They then saw Kripacharya, Vidura, Gandhari, and Drona. Other members of the Kuru dynasty were not sorry because they wanted the Pandavas and their mother to be killed. But some family members, headed by Bhishma, were actually very sorry for the incident, and Krishna and Balaram expressed equal sorrow without disclosing the actual situation.
When Krishna and Balaram were away from the city of Dwaraka, there was a conspiracy to take the Shamantaka jewel away from Satyajit. the chief conspirator, was Shatadanva, who was among those who had wanted to marry Satyabhama, Satyajit's beautiful daughter. Satyajit had promised that he would give his beautiful daughter in charity to various candidates, but later the decision was changed and Satyabhama was given to Krishna along with the Shamantaka jewel. Satyajit had no desire to give the jewel away with his daughter, and Krishna, knowing his mentality, accepted his daughter but returned the jewel. After getting back the jewel from Krishna, he was satisfied and kept it with him always. But in the absence of Krishna and Balaram, there was a conspiracy by many men, including even Akrura and Kritavarma, who were devotees of Lord Krishna, to take the jewel from Satyajit. Akrura and Kritavarma joined the conspiracy because they wanted the jewel for Krishna. They knew that Krishna wanted the jewel and that Satyajit had not delivered it properly. Others joined the conspiracy because they were disappointed in not having the hand of Satyabhama. Some of them incited Shatadanva to kill Satyajit and take away the jewel.
The question is generally raised, why did a great devotee like Akrura join this conspiracy? And why did Kritavarma, although a devotee of the Lord, join the conspiracy also? The answer given by great authorities like Jiva Goswami is that although Akrura was a great devotee, he was cursed by the inhabitants of Vrindavan because of his taking Krishna away from their midst. Because of wounding their feelings, Akrura was forced to join the conspiracy declared by sinful men. Similarly, Kritavarma was a devotee, but because of his intimate association with Kamsa, he was contaminated by sinful reactions, and he also joined the conspiracy.
Being inspired by all the members of the conspiracy, Satadhanva one night entered the house of Satyajit and killed him while he was sleeping. Satadhanva was a sinful man of abominable character, and although due to his sinful activities he was not to live for many days, he decided to kill Satyajit while Satyajit was sleeping at home. When he entered the house to kill Satyajit, all the women there cried very loudly. But in spite of their great protests, Satadhanva mercilessly butchered Satyajit without hesitation, exactly as a butcher kills an animal in the slaughterhouse. Since Krishna was absent from home, his wife Satyabhama was present on the night Satyajit was murdered, and she began to cry, my dear father, how mercilessly you have been killed." The dead body of Satyajit was not immediately removed for cremation because Satyabhama wanted to go to Krishna in Hastinapura. Therefore, the body was preserved in a tank of oil so that Krishna could come back and see the dead body of Satyajit and take real action against Satadhanva. Satyabhama immediately started for Hastinapura to inform Krishna about the ghastly death of her father.
When Krishna was informed by Satyabhama of the murder of his father-in-law, he began to lament like an ordinary man. His great sorrow is again a strange thing. Lord Krishna has nothing to do with action and reaction, but because he was playing the part of a human being, he expressed his full sympathy for the bereavement of Satyabhama, and his eyes filled with tears when he heard about the death of his father-in-law. He thus began to lament, "Oh, what unhappy incidents have taken place!" Then Krishna and Balaram, along with Satyabhama, immediately returned to Dwarka and began to make plans to kill Shatadhanva and take away the jewel. Although he was a great outlaw in the city, Shatadhanva was still very much afraid of Krishna's power, and thus when Krishna arrived, he became most afraid.
Understanding Krishna's plan to kill him, he immediately went to take shelter of Kritavarma. But Kritavarma said, "I shall never be able to offend Lord Krishna and Balaram, for they are not ordinary persons. They are the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Who can be saved from death if he has offended Balaram and Krishna? No one can be saved from their wrath." Kritavarma further said that Kamsa, although powerful and assisted by many demons, could not be saved from Krishna's wrath, and what to speak of Jarasandha, who had been defeated by Krishna 17 times, and each time had to return from the fighting in disappointment. When Shatadhanva was refused help by Kritavarma, he went to Akrura and implored him to help. But Akrura also replied, "Balaram and Krishna are themselves the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and anyone who knows their unlimited strength would never dare offend them or fight with them." He further informed Shatadhanva, "Krishna and Balaram are so powerful that simply by willing, they create, maintain, and dissolve the whole cosmic manifestation. Unfortunately, persons bewildered by the illusory energy cannot understand the strength of Krishna, although the whole cosmic manifestation is fully under his control." He cited as an example that Krishna, even at the age of 7 years, had lifted Govardhan Hill and had continued to hold up the umbrella for 7 days, exactly as a child carries a small umbrella. Akrura plainly informed Shatadhanva that he would always offer his most respectful obeisances to Krishna, the super soul of everything created, and the original cause of all causes. When Akrura also refused to give him shelter, Shatadhanva decided to deliver the Shamantaka jewel into the hands of Akrura. Then, riding on a horse which could run at great speed and up to 400 miles at a stretch, he fled from the city.
When Krishna and Balaram were informed of the flight of Shatadhanva, they mounted their chariot, its flag marked by a picture of Garuda, and followed immediately. Krishna was particularly angry with Shatadhanva and wanted to kill him because he had killed Satyajit, a superior personality. Satyajit happened to be the father-in-law of Krishna, and it is the injunction of the Shastras that one who is Guru Druha, who has rebelled against a superior person, must be punished in proportion to the severity of the offense. Because Shatadhanva had killed his father-in-law, Krishna was determined to kill him by any means.
Shatadhanva's horse became exhausted and died near a garden house in Mithila. Unable to take help of the horse, Shatadhanva began to run with great speed. In order to be fair to Shatadhanva, Krishna and Balarama also left their chariot and began to follow Satadhanva on foot. While Satadhanva and Krishna were running, Krishna took his disc and cut off Satadhanva's head. After Satadhanva was killed, Krishna searched through his clothing for the Shamandaka jewel, but he could not find it. He then returned to Balarama and said, "We have killed this person uselessly, for the jewel is not to be found on his body." Sri Balarama suggested the jewel might have been kept in the custody of another man in Dwaraka, so you would better return and search it out. Sri Balarama expressed his desire to remain in Mithila city for some days because he enjoyed an intimate friendship with the king. Therefore, Krishna returned to Dwaraka and Balarama entered the city of Mithila.
When the king of Mithila saw the arrival of Sri Balaram in his city, he was most pleased and received the Lord with great honor and hospitality. He gave many valuable presents to Balaramji in order to seek his pleasure. At this time, Sri Balaram lived in the city for several years as the honored guest of the king of Mithila, Janaka Maharaj. During this time, Duryodhana, the eldest son of Dhritarashtra, took the opportunity to come to Balaram and learn from him the art of fighting with a club. After killing Shatadhanva, Krishna returned to Dwarka, and in order to please his wife Satyabhama, he informed her of the death of Shatadhanva, the killer of her father. But he also informed her that the jewel had not been found in his possession. Then, according to religious principles, Krishna, along with Satyabhama, performed ceremonies in honor of his departed father-in-law. In those ceremonies, all the friends and relatives of the family joined together.
Akrura and Kritavarma were prominent members in the conspiracy to kill Satyajit, having incited Shatadhanva to kill him. So when they heard of the death of Shatadhanva at Krishna's hand, and when they also heard that Krishna had returned to Dwaraka, they both immediately left the city. The citizens of Dwaraka felt themselves threatened with pestilence and natural disturbances due to the absence of Akrura from the city. This was a kind of superstition, because while Lord Krishna was present, there could not be any pestilence, famine, or natural disturbances. But in the absence of Akrura, there were apparently some disturbances in Dwaraka. The superstition arose for the following reason. Once in the province of Kashi, Varanasi, there was severe drought. Practically no rain fell. At that time, the king of Kashi arranged the marriage of his daughter, known as Gandhini, with Swavalka, the father of Akrura. This was done by the king of Kashi on the advice of an astrologer. And actually it so happened that after the marriage of the king's daughter with Swavalka, there was sufficient rainfall in the province. Due to this supernatural power of Swavalka, his son Akrura was considered equally powerful, and people were under the impression that wherever Akrura or his father stayed, there would be no natural disturbances such as famine or drought. That kingdom is considered happy where there is no famine, pestilence, or excessive heat and cold, and where people are happy mentally, spiritually, and physically. As soon as there was some disturbance in Dwaraka, People considered the cause to be the absence of an auspicious personality in the city. There was also a rumor that because of the absence of Akrura, inauspicious things were happening. After the departure of Akrura, some of the elderly residents of the city also began to perceive inauspicious signs due to the absence of the Shamantaka jewel. When Lord Sri Krishna heard these rumors spread by the people, he decided to summon Akrura from the kingdom of Kashi.
Akrura was Krishna's uncle. Therefore, when he came back to Dwarka, Lord Krishna first of all gave him a welcome befitting a superior person. Krishna is the supersoul in everyone and knows everything going on in everyone's heart. He knew everything that had happened in connection with Akrura's conspiracy with Satyadanva. Therefore, he smilingly began to speak to Akrura, addressing him as the chief among munificent men. Krishna said, "My dear uncle, it is already known to me that the Shamantaka jewel was left by Satyadanva with you. Presently, there is no direct claimant of the Shamantaka jewel, for King Satyajit has no male issue. His daughter Satyabhama is not very eager for this jewel, yet her expected son, as the grandson of Satyajit, would, after performing the regulative principles of inheritance, be the legal claimant of the jewel." Lord Krishna indicated by this statement that Satyabhama was already pregnant and that her son would be the real claimant of the jewel and would certainly take it from Akrura.
Krishna continued, "This well is so powerful that no ordinary man is able to keep it. I know that you are very pious in activities, so there is no objection to the jewels being kept with you. There is one difficulty, and that is that my elder brother Sri Balarama does not believe my version that the jewel is with you. I therefore request you, O large-hearted one, to show me the jewel just once before my other relatives, so that they may be pacified and reject various kinds of rumors. You cannot deny that the jewel is with you, because we can understand that you have enhanced your opulence and are performing sacrifices on an altar made of solid gold. The properties of the jewel were known. Wherever the jewel remained, it would produce for the keeper more than 2 mounds of pure gold daily. Akrura was getting gold in that proportion and distributing it profusely at sacrificial performances. Lord Krishna cited Akrura's lavishly spending gold as positive evidence of his possessing the Shamantaka jewel.
When Lord Krishna, in friendly terms and sweet language, impressed Akrura about the real fact that Akrura understood that nothing could be concealed from the knowledge of Sri Krishna, he brought out the valuable jewel, covered by cloth but shining like the sun, and presented it before Krishna. Lord Krishna took the Shamantaka jewel in his hand and showed it to all his relatives and friends present, and then returned the jewel to Akrura in their presence. so that they would know that the jewel was actually being kept by Akrura in Dwarka city. This story of Shamataka jewel is very significant. In Srimad Bhagavatam, it is said that anyone who hears the story of the Shamataka jewel or describes it or simply remembers it will be free from all kinds of defamation and the reactions of all impious activities, and thus will attain the highest perfectional condition of peace. This story of the Shamataka jewel is very significant. In Srimad Bhagavatam, it is said that anyone who hears the story of the Shamataka jewel or describes it or simply remembers it will be freed from all kinds of defamation and the reactions of all impious activities, and thus will attain the highest perfectional condition of peace. Haribo. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the 57th chapter of Krishna, the killing of Satyajit and Shatadamva.
So that concludes our weekly Krishna book reading to Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada, we would like to thank you again for letting us come and read your Krishna book to you. And as always, let us conclude with offering our respectful obeisances to Srila Prabhupada and to each other. Namo Vishnuvadaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharane Nirvasesha Sunyavadi Paskachadesha Tarane. To each other, Panchakalpadrubhischa Kripa Sindhu Bhyevacha Patita Nam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. So next week we will be on chapter 58, 5 Queens Married by Krishna. So we'll see you again. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Book Ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.